Hey guys, so
So
welcome to
are
Jewish
you
Boy. Give me a second, Ema, just giving the whole thing. Hey, Aunt Judy. Hey,
Hey,
Ema.
Claudia.
Okay, so welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. We do have a special guest, my Aunt Judy. Hello.
Hi.
Just letting you know, you will be video recorded as much as physically audio recorded. So don't worry about it. It's fine. Just keeping you in mind.
Well, tell me, which way do I look better, with my glasses or without my glasses?
You look better either way. It's fine. You look fantastic.
You look fine.
You look fantastic.
I don't photograph well. I
Okay.
look like a bug.
So we have a few.
Let me
We
try.
have.
Wait. Let me try my glasses off. Wait, let me look. Let me take my glasses off.
I think I like you
Let me
with
see.
them.
You like me
I
with?
think
You
I
like
like
with?
you with them. Yeah.
You like me with
With
my
the
glasses? With the
yeah.
glasses?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe,
Okay, with my
maybe.
glasses. Okay. Let me put on my glasses. And can you hold the phone for me, Judy?
I'm holding
Thank
the
you very
phone.
much. Thank you very much. Judy's holding the phone for our people who are our subscribers, and I'm putting on my glasses. And here we both are. This is my sister, Judy.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. All right, guys. So I will. I was gonna have the original question about singing and whatnot, and that was the episode we did Wednesday that unfortunately got lost. So it's a lost episode. We're gonna see if we can get it back, but right now we have an opportunity. I have a few questions to get things going. So, Aunt Judy, what was it like growing up with your older sister? And
You don't really want to know the answer to that, do
we
you?
what? Of course we do. This is why one of the reasons why we're doing this is to record, the life of my mother, and then laugh at it later on.
Do we have to follow FCC rules about not using profanity?
I usually just give a warning that we're going to be using foul language, but if it's
good, because I would have to hang up.
yeah. So I guess Aunt Judy, so that's really what we were talking about. Shoot, I should have been more prepared than this. My original question was, we talked about, Ema was talking about the story when she was at a church with a giant cross over her, and I wanted to know if she could elaborate on that.
Wait,
and then we
I
can work
wasn't
around
dead. I didn't have a cross on top of me.
What was the
Let
story?
me tell the whole thing. Should I tell the whole thing?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, tell the whole thing. Okay, here's what happened. I was we went over this before in one of our previous podcasts, that I was a professional singer, and
Yes.
that a lot of the churches, of course, hire professional singers to augment their choir and give it a nicer tone. And so it wasn't, of course, it wasn't a matter of, God forbid, any type of conviction. I was doing it, just say professional for
the money.
For the money. So anyway, when I first joined this choir, we would just be in the choir section, like the choir loft, just singing. That was it, no problem. Then the parson, this was a Lutheran church, decided he wanted us to come up, and there was a cross, not in front of us, but there was a cross like at the end of the walkway as you come into the to the sanctuary, and he wanted us to bow, like to nod our heads, like not like to bow from the waist. So what I did was, I didn't feel comfortable actually bowing from the waist, so I just nodded my head, and I would nod my head, but I would turn it to the right, so it wasn't a total bow. It wasn't a real bow. I was turning my head. So anyway, so there came time for the Christmas service, the Christmas Eve service, and the choir director told us that first, as we're singing, we process around the church 3 times, and then we go into the choir loft. Okay. What they did not tell me what was about to happen. We process around the church 3 times. Now we come down the aisle before going into the choir loft, and there I see at the end of the aisle, when I come to the end of the aisle, right in front of me is this guy who looked like a crusader. I thought I was going to get, I thought I was back in history about to get murdered. This guy had a long white robe, long flowing blonde hair, and he was holding this big gold cross right on, almost on top of my head. So there was no getting around this one. And I looked, and I stood there frozen, because I was not told about this one. And I looked and I looked and I looked, and I just yelled at him, "I'm not going to do it!" And then I ran into the choir loft.
So, Aunt Judy, I got a question for you.
Sure.
What was your reaction to when my mother decided to become Orthodox?
It wasn't so much her decision as when a lot of people, not just your mom, become Baltashuvas,
Yeah.
they go from like 0 to 100 quickly,
Yeah.
and they don't warn your family. They don't really warn people what's happening to them.
Okay.
Because I had the same thing happen to me. I was dating a guy in high school, and I thought we were getting a little bit serious, although we were 18, so it probably wasn't serious. And he went away to college, and I couldn't wait to see him. And this is a cute story though. And he comes back for Thanksgiving break, and he comes to pick me up for our date. And I just am so excited to see him, and I run up to hug him. And he takes 2 steps away, and he says, "I can't touch you."
Oh, he's showing a Gia.
And I looked at him, and this was before I really understood orthodoxy, real orthodoxy.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, "Why can't you touch me?" I mean, trust me, we were touching before he left college. We were touching a lot. And he said, "Well, you may not be clean." And I looked at him and I said, "I just took a shower. What are you talking about?"
Oh my gosh.
I had no clue. So, I mean, I have had familiarity with people, all of a sudden becoming, like I said, Baltashivas,
Yeah.
born agains. And it's more a shock at how they've changed and don't really warn you.
Yeah.
And like we had a thing. You want to hear bad stories
Oh
about your
yes, this is
mom?
awesome.
Well, this is a bad story about me
Oh, okay.
and your mom.
Oh yay.
So after I graduated college, I wanted to take a trip, and your mom says to me, "I'm going up to New York and Boston. Why don't you come with me?" So I said, "Great." And she said, "Just make sure to bring a dress with you because we're going to be staying by the Boston Rebbe." Well,
Whoa.
at that point, I didn't understand about Rebbe's. I didn't
Yeah.
understand. And I took it was a nice dress. It was short sleeve though, but I mean the collar could be buttoned up, so reasonably, except
Yeah.
it was above the elbows, but not bad. So we're staying with the Boston Rebbe, and we're having dinner. And one of Zalka, I call her Charlene with the old name, but one
Uh-huh.
of Zalka's friends asked her, "Are you living at home?" And your mother said, "No, I can't." And I'll never forget this. And she said, "Why can't you live at home?" And your mother said, "Because my mother doesn't keep kosher."
Oh yeah, we talked about that in the last episode.
Well, my mother did keep kosher.
Yes.
She may
Yes.
not have kept it to the extent, but she was, we couldn't eat milchik and fleshik. We ate milchik before fleshik, but not fleshik before. But, we did keep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And at those days, there weren't a lot of hechsers. So, whatever hechsers she could find, she did. If not, she always looked at the ingredients to make sure there was nothing trace. You got to remember, this is the 70s. So this was not an abnormal thing to do for
Yeah.
people who kept kosher. So she said to her friend that her mother did not keep kosher. Well, I looked at her and I said, excuse my language, "What the hell did you just say?"
At the
she
Boston
said,
Rebbe's dinner table. Jeez
right,
Louise.
at the boss said, luckily enough, there was like 50 people there, so I wasn't too.
Yeah.
But she said, "Well, mom and dad do not keep kosher, so I can't eat there." And I called her a few names and told her to
Yeah.
go to H. And then I backhanded her. I basically smacked her against the face,
Oof.
on the
Oof.
face.
Okay.
And we did not have a good time that week.
Interesting.
Because, to me, my parents, I respected them and I respected their kashrut. And it never occurred to me that there's another level of kashrut at that age. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
was so outraged. Like, how dare she put my parents down publicly
well,
for something like that? I was so angry. And I still remember to this day smacking her in the face because I said, "You do not diss my parents like that.
I'm sorry. Do you forgive me?
I forgive you now.
And I forgive you too.
Okay, thank you.
So
But man, I could have killed her.
well, it's funny because like I know there's in Lubavitch there's something called Lubavitch Shchita that like my family doesn't really hold by, but Menachem does. So we kind of got an inkling taste of like what it's like to have a balshuva from home because he's like, oh, I do Lubavitch Shchita. I can't eat this meat, and we're like, dude, this is like
Tell our listeners who Menachem is. They might not
Menachem
know.
is my little brother who became like hardcore Lubavitch, and he tried to play it off as if he came from a non-religious home. We're like, dude, we are Orthodox, Shabbos, kashrus, everything. Shut your mouth. Oh my God, get over yourself. But like, eventually, we came to this mutual understanding of what he's talking about. Okay. Speaking of which, did you ever see the TV show The Patient?
No.
You gotta watch it. It's with Steve
I've got to
Carell.
watch that. I've been waiting to watch it. You're right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes. It's about the it's about this. It's really about this guy who gets captured by this serial killer. But this guy's a therapist, and his sub story is he comes from a Reformed Jewish background, and his son becomes an Orthodox Jew. And little like subtle jabs they have at each other was like, ooh, this is like a really like it was spot on. It wasn't like any of these like in my personal opinion, I do not like Fiddler on the Roof because that like is an exaggeration of what the Shtetls were like. You know, first off, nobody was singing. Second off, they did not have mixed dancing. So to go ahead
But the music was good. Come on.
I'm not saying it wasn't good. I could say bacon probably tastes good. That doesn't matter. So I guess to add on to that, a little switcheroo, a little pump the brakes. What nicknames do you have for each other, or anything that you kind of had growing up? Because for me, growing up, people called me Saji. Like people don't really call me that anymore, but like that was my nickname as a kid.
In fact, I used to like to call you Monsieur Saji.
Monsieur Saji.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She used to call me Icky Bicky. Well, my family used to call me Icky Bicky Baby Boo when I was little.
Because there was a very pop song when Jewdy was like baby, a toddler. It went, the beginning of the song went, Icky Bicky Baby, boom, boom. And so we all started to call Jewdy Icky Bicky Baby.
That's awesome.
I was the baby. And they would call me Ick for short.
For short.
And I think we called you one time Doothy Boo or something. For Jewdy, instead of Jewdy, we call you Doothy Boo or something like that.
That I never remember. Yeah, I might have been too little for that. But I do remember Icky Bicky.
What was I called among other 4-letter words?
Sometimes I called you AH, but
my mother, when I was a teen, my mother, in a moment of extreme anger, called me a I don't want to say over the area, bastard.
Oh, okay.
They were married.
And me being a sassy teenager said to her, "Am I really? What does that say about you?"
Well,
that got me a good touch.
We were raised old-fashioned that if you screwed up, you got potched.
Yeah, I'm realizing now how kind of silly it is because it's like it doesn't really help. It just hurts more. Was there anything you were jealous of your older sister for, Aunt Judy?
Oh, jealous. Yes. I always felt that my parents, I always felt that they liked things about my other sisters more than me. Like Anne was the one who was pretty and popular. And Charlene was very bright, very bright. I hate her for it, but she was very bright. But very bright and very talented.
You're the one with the master's degree, not me.
Mm-hmm. But one time I asked my father, and I said, well, you keep telling me how Anne is so beautiful and so social and lovely, and how Charlene I call her, and how Charlene is so brilliant and so talented. I said, what are my attributes? And he looked at me and he said, you know what? You don't have any.
Oh my God, that's terrible. That is terrible.
Swear to God, he said that. Swear.
You sure he wasn't joking around?
No, he wasn't.
Oh no.
And I begged him for something good to say about me, and he said, I really have nothing.
Oh, that's terrible.
So I grew up knowing that I always felt like I was an afterthought, even though I knew, believe it or not, I knew I was planned. They told me very distinctly.
You know the story. Mom was going crazy because I was very hyperactive,
Yes.
and mom was going crazy and, just raising me, and all her attention was turned on me. So her gynecologist suggested to mom and dad that they should have another child to create more of a distraction so she's not totally wrapped up in me. Not only was I hyperactive, I had a lot of physical problems. My
Yeah.
eyes, particularly,
Yeah.
I had 3 eye operations. So I had some real, I had some
Oh.
real physical problems. And so he felt that having a third child would kind of take my mother's attention off of constantly being wrapped around all the problems she had with me. But I always thought that, like you said, I was so brilliant. My school did not come easy to me. I mean, I might have gotten, thank God, straight A's, but I had to study a lot and work very hard. You, on the other hand, you got A's without even trying. You, if anybody was brilliant, I think you were the brilliant one. I mean, and to raise a family, you raised a family, plus got your master's degree. I knew that I could not raise a family and be in school at the same time. That's why I got my BA first before even thinking about
That's right.
marriage,
Yeah.
because I knew I couldn't do both. But you did both.
Well, I know my first year of grad school, I have a master's in social work. My first year in grad school, I tell people like years later, it was the year from hell, because I had Tova, I had my 7-year-old daughter, and I was in a master's program for the first time in like 20 years. I hadn't been in school, and I was working part-time. I had a part-time internship, and then my mother had cancer, and somebody had to like take care of her at night to like clean her wounds and stuff and do a lot of things for her. So I would go to school. I would go to either my job or my internship. I would come home. I'd go right to mom's. I would take care of mom. I would come home, put Tova to bed, and then have to study. And I said to my family, I don't know how I got through that first year. And I did get straight A's that first year.
Yeah. I remember. That was amazing.
It was a hard year, but I didn't get straight A's in my bachelor's program, but I never opened a book.
So
I just didn't.
I have a question then. What was your reaction to my mother's boyfriends, and what was your first reaction to my father being introduced by my mother?
I can tell you about the boyfriend story,
Okay.
especially one. She had a date with some guy. I don't know if it was a blind date or what, but it was a first date and she hadn't met him before. And those two used to dress me up. And they dressed me up in my Aunt B's. She had sent over some dresses that she wasn't wearing anymore.
We wanted to play a prank on this guy. I remember, you just jolted my memory. We decided just for a joke to play a prank on this guy. It was a blind date.
And I was like, I might have been maybe 14, but I was very well endowed at 14. So they put me in this strapless gown.
Oh God.
I'll never forget it. It was blue and it was ball gown length and it was the kind you'd wear to a wedding.
Okay.
And they had me greet him at the door. And I think his name was Chuck. And when I opened the door, I put my hand up to shake his hand. And I said, "Hi, Chucky, how you doing?" And he just, his jaw dropped and he just stood there staring at me.
That is awesome. We
were hysterical. The other guys, I mean, there were guys. I mean, I think I was 4 years younger, so a lot of times I didn't pay attention to like who she and Ann were really dating.
Okay.
Although when Ann was dating our oldest sister, you could sit on the top step of the upstairs and look straight down into the recreation room.
Yeah.
And when Ann was on the couch, not doing anything heavy now, but a little bit of necking, I would sit there and watch them.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Now the truth comes out.
Well, what happened was that my mother caught me and got really angry. And she said, "You're never to do that again." So a couple weeks later, I happened to have come out of my bedroom and I saw my mother sitting on the top step looking down.
Oh, that's
Big
awesome.
Brother's watching you.
I remember going to Bubby and Zadie's. It was just it was a lot of fun. I used to go ahead and like go through the old newspapers and get all the comics and get like my Shasta ginger ale and cream soda.
Oh yeah.
And then have like Zadie like watch the game If not, we'd like watch some like, cartoon of some sort.
Yeah, or the Three Stooges or something.
Yeah. Do you remember any like favorite food that Bubby used to enjoy making or that you enjoyed having, like maybe for Shabbos or Yom Tif?
The Mundel bread.
Mundel bread.
Oh, that was good.
I was
She would
going to
make
say,
mundel bread?
I
Mundel
love my mother dearly. I love her to death.
However,
Cooking was not her forte.
But Mundel
Okay.
bread.
And in
Her
fact,
Mundel bread was her signature.
yes. In fact,
recipe.
this is funny. At her, I delivered the eulogy for her at her funeral.
Yeah, you cracked everybody up.
oh my gosh, by the way,
Everyone was. Yeah.
just to let you know, at Zadie's funeral, the rabbi that was speaking had a high-pitched voice and a horrible lisp. I couldn't keep it straight the whole time. Who got him? Who was he?
I don't know.
He was the assistant rabbi of Beth Israel. It's a conservative congregation.
Okay.
That was one with the ponytail, the man with the long black ponytail.
Rabbi Bailey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just cracking
he was
up.
a nice guy.
Nice. He was
Probably
very nice.
was.
Very nice.
Just like at a funeral, I just couldn't
Yeah.
hold myself together. It was, yeah.
And then my delivery didn't help any because my eulogy for both parents was Dad's was cute, but the delivery for my mother was, in fact, Levinson's staff came into the room because each one was saying, "You got to hear this eulogy. I've never heard a funnier eulogy." And they actually came in the room and sat in the back laughing hysterically.
That's awesome.
But one of the things I said was that my mother taught me how to cook Cajun cooking.
Oh, nice.
Everything she cooked was blackened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I remember you telling me, Judy, that I think the funeral director afterwards walked over to you and said, had the state inspector come in, I would have holleshed. He would have asked me, what is this, comedy night at the funeral home?
People could not believe. People were laughing. I didn't mean it to be funny, but it just came out hysterically funny. It was about things my mother taught me, and it just wound up being hysterical. But her Mundel bread was awesome.
Really?
And when Mom was in ICU, her last ICU visit,
Yeah.
and we came, and Tova came,
Mhm.
and we were trying to cheer Mom up a little bit. And I said to Tova, ask Bubby for her recipe, because she cooked it every week, or every other week, so she knew it by heart. So Mom gives her the recipe. She sits up in bed, and she gives her the recipe for her Mundel bread. So the next week, Tova goes and makes it. And we both eat it, and I said, something's not right. And I realized that Bubby forgot to tell her to put the vanilla and the almond extract in. And we
Oh.
were laughing to say, was Mom trying to like not let Tova have the identical recipe? Or
I'll take it to my grave.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
But I used to make it with her too, so I figured it out.
Okay. Awesome.
But Tova's recipe is exactly like hers.
Can you give us the recipe and we'll post it?
We're not posting it, no.
Oh, it's really. You're that
that
protective over it.
Protective, yes.
But
yes.
One
Okay.
thing Mom taught me was evidently that combination of almond extract with vanilla extract. It's a delicious combination for pastries and cookies. It's just delicious.
Yeah.
And I noticed that a lot of recipes that I've seen for cakes and cookies and pastries, they won't get that combination of the almond extract and vanilla, which is it's a signature flavor. It's very good.
This is the only recipe I've ever seen that adds almond and vanilla extract to a recipe, and it's just wonderful.
I've actually added it to like sometimes my coffee, almond and vanilla.
Never thought of doing that. Well, I don't drink coffee.
Really? You don't drink coffee?
You don't drink coffee?
I drink tea.
Oh, all right, whatever.
I just found the greatest tea. I shouldn't say this because it's advertising, but I found a really incredible tea that it's just a slob.
You can mention it. We're not pushing any products here. We're just talking about our personal preferences.
I happen to love cinnamon, so I put cinnamon in my cinnamon sticks and sometimes cloves.
Oh, yeah, Ema, you do that sometimes.
I used to do it more. I'm drinking. I'm drinking more like chamomile, sleepy time, because a lot of times I like black tea, regular black tea, but the problem is my body's become very sensitive to after 5 drinking anything with caffeine. I never used to be that way. When I was a teenager, I could drink a very strong cup of coffee and just, go to sleep immediately with no problems. But
she just reminded me of stories about one of her boyfriends.
Stanley with the coffee.
What?
He had a boyfriend, Stanley.
He's also the 5,000
Oh.
piece puzzle guy.
Yes, we have that on our episode. But okay, Stanley continued. Sweet.
So a couple of my fond memories of Stanley was that he used to come in and make this coffee real strong, and we used to call it mud. And he used to come to our house, and Mom never minded because my father worked till he'd come home at 2 or 3 in the morning sometimes from work.
Oh wow.
He worked at his uncle's restaurant, and he stayed till closing. So one night he gets home, and Stanley's still there. And I used to call this the "Do you have a home" story, because Dad walked in, and Dad used to be very strong. He could lift 50 pounds of potatoes. And Stanley was skinny, maybe 90 pounds. And he comes in, and I happened to have been up that night. And he comes over, and he sees Stanley there at 3 in the morning, and he says, "Do you have a home?" And then Stanley says, "Yes, sir. Very nice home. Thank you, sir." He says, "Well, you need to get there right now." And Stanley says, "Yes, sir, as soon as I finish my coffee." And Dad picked him up, chair and all, took him to the front door and dumped him on the front porch and said, "I said go there now," and shut the door on him.
That is awesome. That is absolutely fantastic. But I remember growing up as a kid, when I couldn't go to sleep or I wasn't feeling too well, my mom would make this warm milk with vanilla and cinnamon and nutmeg and sugar. And I would just enjoy it as a kid, and it would help me fall asleep. I made it a couple of times as I got older, but was there anything like that you guys had growing up that your mother would make for you or your father would make for you?
Well, when we were sick, especially when I remember very distinctly when I had the Asian flu. Mm-hmm. When you got sick like that, you were moved from your bedroom to the couch, mm-hmm. which was much better because, first of all, you were away from the other kids. Also, we only had one bathroom in our house when we were younger. Before we moved to Baltimore County. When we lived in Baltimore City, we had a small Cape Cod house that had only one bathroom on the bottom floor. So the couch was in the living room, much closer to the bathroom. So when you got sick, my mother would make you chicken soup with rice and regular black tea with sugar. And I remember, it really made you feel a lot better. It was very good. I remember eating it on the couch and drinking it on the couch. It was very good.
Yeah, I remember when I got my tonsils taken out and I was in the hospital. Then they kept you. And I remember crying. I was 5 years old. And they said, "Well, here, we'll give you ice cream." I said, "I don't want ice cream." Mm-hmm. And they said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Iced tea." And they were like, "Iced tea? What child wants iced tea?" And they let Mom go into the kitchen and make her iced tea for me. We always had iced tea in the refrigerator.
What was the iced tea? What was it made? Yeah. Was it just regular Lipton or
just regular Lipton with sugar?
Okay.
And when later on she made it with saccharin.
Okay.
Very healthy, very healthy. And Dad always drank it hot with milk.
No, Dad. Oh, it's so funny. I think we had this on the podcast about my father. In our house, we always drank tea in a glass, hot tea in a glass.
Yeah, that was a Russian thing, Russian-Ukrainian thing.
The white Anglo Protestant guy that came to my house to go over some music.
Yeah.
And I offered him tea.
Yes.
And I served it to him in a glass. And I sit down, I start drinking my tea, and he says to me, "You served me my tea in a glass." I said to him, "Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like a glass, okay." Yeah. And then he says to me again, "You served me my tea in a glass." And I said, "Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah, it's a glass." And then he says to me again, "You served me my tea in a glass." I said, "Yes, it's a glass. So drink it already. What's your problem?" So he says, "Everyone knows you're supposed to serve tea in a cup with a cup." I said, "Why?" He says, "So you can handle the cup by the handle and not burn your fingers." So I said, "Oh," I said, "I never realized that." So then he says to me, how am I supposed to drink this? So I thought, because usually when you drink tea, people who are of Ukrainian background, who drink their hot tea in a glass, the way that you drink it is you hold the glass
Tip.
from the
Top.
top.
Yeah, hold it from the top and drink. Yeah.
Right. So he says to me, can you give me a napkin? So I gave him a napkin and he folded up the napkin and put it around the glass and drank it that way.
All right. So we're at the 10-minute mark. Aunt Judy, my question is injuries as a kid. What injuries did you have? And if so, how did Bubby and Zadie, I guess help you guys?
I remember the bumblebee incident. Mom slapped you. You were poor thing. You were in those
I
days.
stepped on a bee.
I don't know what it was. They had a thing in those days, the World War II generation,
Yeah.
where if somebody was crying or in shock or hysterical, they would slap them, and it was supposed to like shake them back to reality, or so it was supposed to like bring snap out of it type thing. So Judy was riding her bike, and I think you fell over, and when you fell over, your hand hit a bumblebee and it stung you. And of course, you came running into the kitchen, screaming and crying and screaming and crying, and Mom started slapping you. And I think that I thought, my God, come on! I mean, what the heck?
Maybe the slap hurt so badly that you forgot about the bee.
I've heard things like that where like you slap them to just focus on something else.
No, Mom would be like, you're crying, so I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah, my dad used to say that. Ema used to say that as well.
But Mom, when we got injured or something, she didn't believe that we got injured. Like you had to be dead for her to believe that you were injured. Because one time I sprained my ankle really badly. I mean, it swelled up and I couldn't walk on it. And Mom was like, oh, it's not that bad. You can walk on it. I couldn't wear my shoe. I mean, it was like really swelling. And I said, can we put ice on it? Mom says, just walk on it. You're just complaining. And finally, Dad looked at it and he said, Rena, I think she's really in a lot of pain. It might actually be broken. We better take her to a hospital. And Mom was really angry at him for taking me to the hospital. And it wound up being a bad sprain. And I was on crutches for like a week.
I remember that.
And the only good thing that came of it is that was our trip to Washington in 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of steps at all these places. And I was able to take the elevator. And all the kids in my class were so pissed. They were like, how come she gets to ride an elevator? Because she has a sprained ankle.
I remember, though, even the attitude of the personnel at the hospital. I remember I was with you. We took you to the hospital.
They made me
and
walk.
you were crying and crying. Yeah, you were crying and crying. And the doctor yells at you, stop crying.
Right. And he made me walk to the x-ray. He says, I don't think it's broken. I think you're fine.
I remember the x-ray technician
Yeah.
came in. He snapped his fingers and said to you, like, come child, walk with me.
Yeah.
And they made her walk to the x-ray room.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. In those days, they had no toleration for anybody getting sick or ill or anything.
It's so weird because, people still get sick. And I guess it's a way of like, you should do that to yourself, not necessarily have someone do that to you.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense, Yeah.
Like we baby our kids. I mean, if Tova got hurt, like I take care of it right away. If she called me up now and said, I hurt my finger, I have a splinter, I'd say, do you want me to come over? My daughter, by the way, I'm not going to say how old. But she just had her second child.
Mazel tov. I know
that's on Sunday.
Monday. I'm like, don't tell me I got my dates wrong.
Yes, no, I got it wrong. There's a football game on Sunday. She's got the bristles on Monday, but
the baby's very smart. He would never have his bris during a football game. He knows better.
It's not a stupid child. But anyway, I would run over there right now if she said, I need you for some reason, and our parents were more stoic about take care of yourself, like what is going on? This is not a big deal.
So we got like 5 minutes left. My question for you guys is, what would you tell Bubby and Zadie now? That's not a real answer. You know that, right?
To the camera on both of us.
So it'd be I love you, or you didn't treat me right, or you guys did a good job, or it's okay, or let it go, or you want to give a diatribe.
Well, I'll tell you an expression that I heard in a cartoon,
Okay.
or not a cartoon, in a show, like the off takes.
Yeah.
This one guy is talking to his wife. He said, "I made a very bad faux pas when I went to dinner with my parents last night." He said, "I meant to say to mom, could you please pass the salt? And I accidentally said to her, thank you for screwing up my life, bitch."
uh,
And that's what I think sometimes. I mean, I love my parents, but we weren't huggy, warm, fuzzy. You know,
really?
they didn't. Yeah, they weren't. They did the grandchildren, but
Oh, okay.
not us. We were not really hugged and physically loved and told, I love you.
You know, there was, well, there's a very famous letter that a lot of psychology books print today to show you the attitudes that were prevalent towards child raising in the 1920s and 30s. And in this letter, there was a very prominent child psychologist of the time who wrote how parents should not be overly affectionate with their children, should not hug and kiss their children, that they should occasionally a little pat on the head will be fine, but don't be this sniveling, weak parent that this is not good for your child. And I think, I mean, my parents in general, I think they were raised
Yeah,
like that.
absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's, you know, the whole idea. In fact, one of the criticisms I got from my mother and my in-laws was, must you hold your baby so much? Why do you have to hold them so much?
Yeah, there's this thing now. I mean, there's this thing today where it's like if a baby cries, at some point you have to stop holding them and you have to let them do something called self-soothe. But now there's a new way of countering that, saying, no, when the baby cries, pick it up. Baby cries, pick it up. Because you know what? Because you're building up a bond, you're building up a trust, and eventually that trust is going to bleed into more things that they can trust you with, and that you have to just let it be. Like that's what happens when you raise a child. They're going to cry, so they're depending on you to pick them up. You know?
There's also something too. I have a lot of experience working in daycare centers, and
she has 10 kids. She's got a lot of experience.
And I found that when a baby cries, it's for a reason. A lot of times we'll get a baby that'll cry and cry and cry. And we think the baby's just crying because he misses his mother. And we try to let the kid cry it out. And then I after 10 minutes, I said, you know what? I better pick him up. And I will pick up this baby, and either he needs his diaper changed or he gets this big burp, because babies can't burp on their own. You have to like pick them up and pat them on the back or something, you know. And either it's a burp, or they might be cold.
You might have a poopy diaper.
They might, yes. They might be thirsty. They might be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
It's if they're crying, there's a reason for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was taught. Now I used to teach parenting skills, and one of the things I learned is you can never spoil an infant with too much love.
Interesting.
You know, infants, especially up to like 1 year old, they don't understand like manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of older kids might use manipulation, but they said until like maybe 2 years old, really, they don't know manipulation. You know, when they need you, it's for a reason, like your mom said, and that's why you should go to them and find out what the problem is.
Okay.
And sometimes, even if they do need comforting, sometimes also what we think of as, oh, they just need attention. A lot of times they'll have gas because the human digestive system is not fully developed for at least the first few months. And babies tend to get a lot of gas. And a lot of times when you hold the baby against you, the warmth, we think it's comforting, but the warmth of your body is actually helping to break up those gas bubbles.
Interesting.
So that their digestive system feels better.
All right. So
I still hug and kiss my daughter, by the way.
Any last words? We have like 40 seconds left.
Hug and kiss your child, and hug and kiss your parents, and appreciate them before you know.
Talk about manipulation.
Before they move to Florida.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm soulless on the inside, so it doesn't really matter what she says. So any last words, Aunt Judy?
You know, just I'm glad this is going to sound harsh, but it's not meant to be.
No, it's okay.
I learned in some ways how not to raise my child, and it's made me a better